All right, let's see. We've got a Marshall JCM 900 SLX. This is the 50 watt model. That's the 2500. This model in particular originally came with, 5881s, but that had been changed over to 6L6 GCs at some point. So there was two different models of these. One of them, some of the models came with EL34s, some of them came with the 5881s. This one's been changed over to EL34s thanks to John, my friend John over at Black Plate Productions. He also has his own amp repair and modification service that he can provide. He's done a little bit of tone enhancement and optimization on this amp, and I think it sounds pretty ripping. So here's a little demo what that sounds like. Just a quick little sound of just the amp raw. Got a little bit of reverb on it coming off of my pedal board. I just have this hooked into my live setup, so keep that in mind. You're hearing a little bit of that. Nothing going into the front right now though, except the guitar. I've got a Ibanez RG7620. It's got a Seymour Duncan Jupiter in the bridge, which is a pretty mid-focused pickup. You could see, well, you can kind of halfway see. I'll have to add it to the description what the settings are there. I got the bass a little bit before noon, and the mid's pretty much straight up and down. Treble just past noon there. Presence around 4 on the dial, so again about 11 o'clock. So everything's pretty much, as far as EQ goes, right on center. The gain control, the sensitivity control, that's about 3 o'clock, a little bit before that, and the preamp volume, which is like the second gain control, that's just past 3 o'clock. So settings other than the volume and the gain, of course, are not extreme by any means, but John's done a good job of tuning this amp up a little bit to get it a little bit tighter. The guitar I'm playing is tuned to drop G sharp, so that this is a 7-string guitar, so the low, the 7th string, that one's tuned down to a G sharp. So pretty low, but you can hear it's holding together pretty nicely. I'm going to kick on a little boost here. I've got a Fortin, what is this thing? Whatever the Whitechapel one is. It's the one with the saw on it. I honestly can't remember what this thing is called. Anyway, I'm going to kick that on just kind of tighten things up. I am going to dial back the gain just a smidge, because this is going to add a bit. All right, here's what that sounds like. So you kind of get the idea of what that does. It tightens up the signal out of the guitar a lot, which I think helps just with this, this low G sharp. And I've got a big, I think this is a 72 or 74 gauge string. So that's definitely sucking a lot of the high end out, and these strings are definitely way dead. So you would have even more of that cutting percussive kind of punch that you want for a low tuning like this. If I used a smaller string and maybe had a fresh pack of them there, but you get the idea though with this Fortin boost on. It definitely tightens this up right into the zone for like super percussive, very aggressive attack from the guitar. I'm gonna riff around a little bit more. There's just a little bit of solo, wanking lead. I actually really love this amp for lead stuff. It's just, it does the Marshall thing that really nothing but a Marshall will do. I know that the 900s are kind of the ugly duckling of the JCM family, but I love the SLXs. I even love the high gain dual reverbs. I think they're really great amps. I think there's just nothing that sounds quite like them. The 800s are great, of course. The 2000s are workhorses. They sound fantastic as well, but I really have a soft spot for these 90s era amps. I'm going to grab a different guitar, I think, and just something in a different tuning and see if we could play around a little bit with that. All right, I've got my Music Man Majesty. So I twisted the knobs a little bit. I was playing this guitar a bit and realized like this guitar is definitely a lot brighter. Just got a lot more high end, and plus it's just up in standard tuning instead of down in that drop G sharp tuning on the 7 string. So I've got the knobs adjusted a bit, and I'm going to riff around a bit. right, so that's kind of what that sounds like. It's definitely this is an amp that, when I went to John, I specifically told him I'm playing in lower tunings, and so he catered to that. You can definitely tell when you plug in a guitar in standard tuning, all that brightness in the attack. Albeit this guitar has plenty of that by itself, so it's definitely dumping a lot of that into the amp. But you can tell like this amp is catered to that lower tuning at this point, which I love. I drop C down into B, or like if you've got a 7-string tuned to standard, or really even lower than that. Like I said, that G sharp guitar that I had earlier, that works great. I still like it with the I love a bright attacking tone, so I really enjoy it even when I've got this guitar tuned up to standard and it's got these bright pickups in it. But that being said, this is it's very cutting, so it's like that's got to be your taste. Which, in fairness, these are already bright amps, so it's not as if that there was some massive tonal change. Really, I'd say what John did was just get the absolute best out of this. He made it so that you can plug in more varied guitars and you can run the gain higher without flubbing out. So that's kind of the I guess you'd say the conundrum, the irony perhaps of a lot of these SLXs is they do have they're very bright sounding amps, but once you start dialing up some of that preamp gain, they get flubby. And so it's like, well, you kind of have a bit of a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a, a catch-22 or something like that, where, you got all this brightness and yet still the attack, the response of the amp is a bit sluggish or slow. So I think what John has done has really taken this amp to where it ought to have been from the factory. I dare say it is more plexi-ish. Perhaps not, maybe even less plexi-ish, maybe more like early JMP 2203, 2204, like kind of like that transitional era before they maybe like the mid to late 70s amps. I always associated those amps with that more bright cutting sound compared to the late 60s plexis, like your classic 68 and stuff like that. Those were to me, they had more of a, or at least could have more of a balanced sound. Of course, this all comes with caveats of like bright cap values and whether or not you have it in the circuit or if you modified it without one. And anyway, I'm kind of rambling here, but the point is, this is to me just like how Marshalls ought to sound. They ought to be bright and cutting, and they ought to be like just super aggressive and not all neat and tailored. And no, I don't want that. I want them pissed. So anyway, we'll keep riffing a bit. It's got all the juice. Anyway, well, so that's about the extent of it. I just kind of wanted to show off a quick little video of this guy. I really like this amp. If you are in the North Carolina area and you want to take your amp down to John at it's a Barrier Auto, or not Auto, Barrier Audio Works. Auto Works. I don't know. He might fix your car for you too, but that's probably going to be a little bit more expensive. So I'd talk to him first about that. Don't know what his policy is on fixing broken radiators and replacing starters. But in any case, if you'd like to have an amp modified, or for that matter, maybe you have some kind of other musical project, talk to John. John's a super cool guy. He's got a crazy skill set, real easy to work with, and he will get you straight. So anyways, thanks for watching, listening. Hopefully you dig the tones. Thanks.